So the next week, November 15th, exactly a week later, Saturday again, my home was broken into in the night. Everything of value was stolen from my home. What I realized when I got home and saw that everything was stolen is I noticed my neighbor across the street was not home, which was odd because it was early in the morning. He's always home. And the other thing that's odd is just recently I had offered him cash to help him make some money because he's out of work, and I wanted to help him out being a good neighbor. So my initial thought was that my neighbor had robbed my house, and it was an isolated incident from everything else going on, but at the same time my flag was up because of everything else that had been going on with me. So my neighbor, he stayed out of town for a number of days, which is really weird because in the entire time he's been my neighbor, he had never gone anywhere. And when he came back, I let him know about all the things that seemed suspicious. And what he said to me right away is he said, "Don't forget that I'm friends with the police." And my neighbor's 30 years older than me and grew up in this town I now live in. So I thought it was a really suspicious response from him. It seemed like he definitely had something to do with my robbery. He's someone who had just found out there was cash in my house. Why? Because I had given him cash to help him out. So next thing I knew, I had a police officer knocking at my door, letting me know that this same neighbor had filed a restraining order against me, which I was really blown away by. And I told the police officer what was going on. He said, "Oh, don't worry about it then. Just go to court, explain the story. They won't uphold this. They'll throw it out. Everything will be okay." So I went to court with that on my mind, thinking that's the way it would work out. The judge decided to uphold the restraining order. The day after upholding the restraining order, my neighbor went out and bought the exact same vehicle as me. Make, model, color, a fairly nice truck. And at the time, this is an older man, a single man living with his wife. They already had 3 vehicles. This new vehicle they purchased was their 4th vehicle. And keep in mind, this guy's out of work. I had just helped him out, giving him money because I knew he was on hard times. Now all of a sudden he goes out and buys a $30,000 vehicle. So I called the police department. I let them know what was up. They didn't seem too interested or to care. Nothing really happened. So this is in November, True Seeker, November 2014. From that point on, time went on. Nothing really suspicious happened again. But I'd already been through all this. I just had my house robbed, everything stolen from me. Well, lo and behold, the next part of the story happens on March 3rd, 3/3, months after November. On March 3rd, my same neighbor who robbed my house, I was in my front yard mowing my lawn. Here in Washington, we got a warmer spring than normal. I was out mowing the yard for the first time. And my neighbor, driving in the same vehicle that I now own, stops in front of my house and flips me off and also honks his horn first to make sure he has my attention. And I thought, what in the world? Why is this guy doing this, flipping me off? Him and I hadn't had any incident. I'm court ordered not to talk to him or communicate it with him because there's a restraining order. So him doing that, what it made me do is I got on the phone and I called the local police department and I reminded them that they had never followed up with me about the burglary of my house, that I had this neighbor across the street provoking me who bought the same vehicle as me. All the evidence was there that he had something to do with the burglary. I didn't get any call back. What I had to do was leave a voicemail with the police officer who was supposed to be working on this. He never even got back to me. And I made this phone call on March 3rd. Well, on March 7th, 4 days later, I was again working in my yard, taking care of it. Again, we're having this warm spring. The grass is growing. The weeds are coming out. All you homeowners know how it is taking care of your property. While I'm working in my front yard, my neighbor comes out of his house and he goes, "Hey, neighbor!" And my head's down in the dirt working on the weeds. And then he yells out the same thing. So I look up, he's staring right at me. And what I said back to him is, "Man, fuck you. Go back in your house. You know you have a restraining order. What are you doing trying to talk to me?" And this is just days after he had flipped me off in front of my house for no reason. So next thing I know, police cars are rolling up. Not one, not two, not three, not four. Pretty soon, within 10 minutes, there are 5 police cars at my house. And let me remind you that when I called the police after my house had been robbed, it took them more than 3 hours to respond. But here they are, 5 cars within 10 minutes of me telling my neighbor to F off and go back in his house because he's trying to provoke me. So I just kept working in my yard. All these police officers are just like gathering up in a circle. First, they go over to his house. Then they come over in a group. One of them approaches me. He asks me what's going on. I said, "Well, what's going on is," I said, "my neighbor across the street who you just talked to, who robbed my house, who you haven't done anything about." I said, "He's been trying to provoke me this week." I said, "I left a message with Robert Buendia." Robert Buendia is the Bothell police officer who's supposed to be taking care of the burglar in my house, who never lifted a finger to do anything to help me. The 2 police officers who came to my house when it was robbed were named Robert and Don. I'll never forget it. 233 names, just like the word police. Anyhow, I told him exactly what happened. I said, just the other day, he just stopped for no reason in front of the house, honked at me, and flipped me off. I said, I just called and left a message with Robert Buendia about that. Nobody's called back. I said, now today he wants to come out of his house and yell at me from across the street. I told him to F off and go back in his house. He goes, "Oh, so you admit that you talked to him?" I said, "Well, I'm just letting you know what's going on." He goes, "You're under arrest." I said, "You got to be kidding me." He said, "You need to turn around." So next thing, I'm in handcuffs. I'm in the back of a police car. Truth Seeker, I was arrested on March 7th. And the reason this is so interesting is because the name Zachary has gematria of 37, and my name Zachary Hubbard has gematria of 66. March 7th happens to be the 66th day of the year. And again, my neighbor out of nowhere had just decided to flip me off on March 3rd. So at this point, I'm starting to get really suspicious of what's going on. I'm starting to wonder who my neighbor really is. Anyhow, since then, I haven't really had anything bizarre happen in my life. But at the same time, all of these things have happened to me since I started this research. I've been intimidated. I've had my house burglarized. I've had a restraining order put on against me. I've had all my valuables stolen. And right now, adding insult to injury, I'm not legally allowed to have a gun. It's illegal for me to have a gun right now. That's part of the court order against me because I'm considered to be a threat to my neighbor. Isn't that comical? So, these are the real consequences of being a truth speaker in this world. And I have no doubt that none of this would have happened to me if I'd never started a written blog, never started a video channel. I'm someone with a criminal record. I'm someone now on probation. I never had any of this before. For getting arrested in my front yard, Truth Seeker, I had to pay more than $3,000 in fines. And adding insult to injury, I paid off all my fines and probation up front so I didn't have any more to deal with. A month after starting probation, I was informed that my probation had been transferred to a private company. And because of that, I now have to pay an additional $60 every month to the private company. So, this is the world we live in. This is the injustice system that I'm well aware of and now I'm very much a part of. And my only real crimes are speaking truth and trying to raise awareness. So what I want you to realize from this video is that, if you're brave enough to tell the truth, to do the kind of research that I and others do, there can be real consequences for you in this world. But you shouldn't let that deter you, because you know what? Even though all this stuff's happened to me, I'm still here to tell the truth. I'm still here to do this research, and I haven't been shut down yet. But also, Truth Seeker, part of the reason I work so hard right now is because I know that I've been threatened, and I know that 33 isn't all that far off. And what I don't know is if these threats are real or if they're just scare tactics, you know? Let me tell you a nicer story, Truth Seeker. Let me take you back to when I was a child, when I was 11 years old. When I was 11 years old, I was in 6th grade, and I had this teacher, Mrs. Peak. And I'm so grateful for Mrs. Peak. It's 21 years later, and I still remember the things Mrs. Peak said to me. When I was in 6th grade, when we had to write essays, I would often write that, you know, I was concerned with the injustices of the world, and when I got older, I wanted to be someone to right the wrongs that I saw. And the way I would write these essays, I would make my teacher cry. And she would tell me that she was so grateful for my attitude and my perspective and the things I wanted to accomplish. She begged me that I never lose that focus, I never lose those ambitions, I never lose those dreams. She told me to stay on the path, and she knew I would do great things in this world. And I've never forgotten her words. And in large part because of what she said to me, it's helped me stay focused through all the turmoil that I've put up with. I mean, besides what I just told you guys, when I started this research, I also had to deal with family and friends who spread rumors that I had become schizophrenic, gone crazy, needed to be medicated. Even my own mom's siblings heard about it and started, chastising her, telling her that they needed to have me checked into a clinic and that she'd raised a Looney Tune. And it's just so insulting because never in my life have I acted like a crazy person. I've always just stood up for the truth and justice. And unfortunately, so many people in this world don't appreciate that. But those things can change if more brave people, if more courageous people raise up and help spread awareness and truth, That's what it's going to take to change culture, society, these types of opinions, these types of things. And also, Truth Seeker, if there were more truth tellers in the world, it would be harder for attacks to be waged against people as they've been waged against me. So, this is my story. These are the things that have happened to me since I started this research. I don't tell this story to deter anyone. I just want you to know that there are real consequences in this world for telling truth, but there's also real reward, and the reward I get is from all of you who are grateful for this work, who are replicating this work, who are using this work to enhance your life. And that's what I really want you to focus on, Truth Seeker. But just know what I'm doing, it really does take a lot of bravery. It does take a lot of courage. And I've put up with a lot of negativity in the 2 years I've been doing this. So I hope you can appreciate that. All right, until next time, Truth Seeker.